Hello and welcome to the A Quilting Life podcast. I'm Sherry McConnell from A Quilting Life, and I am here just with Billy today. We have a special guest interview for you today, and so I went ahead and talked with our guest earlier, and we're so excited to be here today. I'm going to first just comment on the fact that it is Memorial Day here in the United States, and we are so grateful for all of those who have sacrificed everything in our behalf, and want to just be sure that that was our top priority today as we are recording this message. Next, we're going to talk about our sponsor, Cozy Earth, and it is we're having hot weather. We're actually having a pretty nice spring here where we are, but the heat is here. We've had several 100-degree days, and the Cozy Earth sheets are coming in so handy. I absolutely love them. I don't know how I would survive our Southern Nevada summers without these great cooling sheets. We just want to remind you that you have a 100-night sleep trial. So if you try them out and you don't like them, you can send them back. And that there is a 10-year warranty on all of the bedding products from Cozy Earth. So head over to Cozy Earth and use our code AQuiltingLife with our link for 40% off. And also, if you happen to get a post-purchase survey, please mention that you heard about them from our podcast. Okay. We don't have quilts today. I'm just here in my sewing room, and I've got some Delightfully Yours fabric behind me and a Delightfully Yours bundle here on the table. We also really don't have a Moda Minute, other than kind of the biggest thing with Moda right now is that Blockhead 6 is beginning, and the first block is actually going to be released in 2 days on Wednesday. So I am going to have a video that will drop that day, and I'll be sharing my first block with you and tips and tricks and just kind of explaining all about that sew along. So be sure to watch for that. Blocks will drop every Wednesday, all the way up through November, I believe. So be sure to watch for that video on Wednesday, and also you'll be seeing those blocks everywhere. We won't film a video every week, but I'll check in with my progress on my works in progress videos, and here and there we'll have a couple of tutorials, especially probably for Chelsea's block and for my block. We'll for sure do tutorials for those. Okay. Today, as I mentioned, we have a special guest interview with Vanessa Christenson of V&Co. She is a Moda designer. She is a certified trainer. She is a certified nutritionist and also a certified life coach who just ran the Boston Marathon a few weeks ago and did very, very well. She's just amazing. She's been an inspiration to me for a long time. We will talk a little bit about in our interview about how I found her and when I first started knowing who she was. And we see each other at market frequently, and this interview has also been a long time coming. We talked about it at Fall Quilt Market way back in 2023. So it's been a little while. She's been busy. We've been busy, but super excited, and know that you're going to enjoy this conversation with her today. Okay, so hello everyone. I'm here with my friend Vanessa Christenson, and I'm super excited to finally get this podcast. I feel like we started maybe talking about it at Quilt Market last October,
right, yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah, that's
2
right.
years ago. It took us a while. Vanessa's been really busy, as you'll find out throughout the interview too. But I'm so excited. I was trying to think when I first started reading your blog. That was my first kind of introduction to you. And you weren't designing fabric for Moda then, and I wasn't. And I believe your husband was deployed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you were writing the blog, and you had a young family, but you were also kind of doing some sewing.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And that was my first introduction for you. And
yeah.
I'm not sure when we met in person first, but it might have been at a quilt market after you were a designer.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, so when I first started the blogging world, it was really we had just moved to a really small remote town, and because my husband was going to do his internship in like wilderness therapy. He's a therapist. And so he was there, but then he got called up to do a deployment. So I was left behind, and so I started my blog just about the daily musings of like being home with four little kids in a really small remote town, and really just sort of trying to make my house a home because we didn't have a lot of money. And so I started to sew and make things with charm packs because that's all I could afford at that point. And then, yeah, that's when tutorials started to be kind of a thing, and people started asking
Right.
how I made it. And so I'm like, oh, okay, so I'll take some pictures and I'll explain it. So I was very not professional in the way that I explained things. I took lots of pictures. And yeah, that's how I kind of started in the blogging world. But it was really a lot of family stuff with some sewing.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. And I remember too, my family was a little bit older than yours, but so I appreciated the family stuff. But then when I would see your blog and there was a sewing post, I was like on it. Like I was so excited. So
yeah, well, and that's where I got super excited about sewing and the sewing community because that became my people. Like that's where it was really exciting to get to create something for just a whole slew of people I didn't know, but then started to become a little bit more familiar. And then I started to get to know other people like you and other people as well.
yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I kind of skipped the part where you could just do like a basic intro about yourself, but if you could do that now, just tell us a little bit about yourself and then I guess you could probably move into how you did go from being a blogger to a moda fabric designer.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so a little bit about me. Gosh, where do I even start? So we've moved to the Midwest. Originally, my husband and I are from California, but we've been living in the Midwest in Iowa for 15 winters. That's how I explain them because the Midwest winters are hard. But I love it here. It's really quite the experience of just a great place to live. I started quilting, I would say, probably 2 times, and I'll explain that a little bit. But I didn't think of myself as a quilter until like I was married with like multiple children. My mom didn't grow up. I didn't grow up sewing, but I did grow up in Los Angeles, and we would walk everywhere and like do lots of things because it was just a really great place to grow up, and San Diego as well. But then as my kids got older, I went back to school because I started having children. Jake and I started having children almost like a year after we were married, and so I put school on the side, and I graduated not in graphic design but in psychology. So my passion has always been psychology. I married a marriage and family therapist. And my background has always been in psychology. And then since then, I've been also certified as a certified personal trainer, a nutrition, and life coach. So I take sort of like those things into the aspects of my life as well. But I also do a lot of quilting stuff, and that led to I've always been very creative. I've always loved doing creative type things, even as a little kid. And I just married those two together, and that's basically who I am, like psychology and quilting.
Right.
And then you were asking about blogging, moving to designer, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, like I sort of already mentioned a little bit, it was, I started blogging mainly because my husband was leaving to go to Afghanistan, and I wanted him to sort of see the day-to-day stuff that we were doing. We had bought the only house that was on the market at the time in our little town, and the people before us had goats and ferrets, sometimes inside the house. So we had to gut the house and that took most of our money. So then I started creating things. I would go to the thrift stores and buy, old sheets and things like that and make something, put it on Etsy, and then gather up some money and then go and buy charm packs and then make stuff for my home. And like I said, that evolved into like showing it to like my family members, and then people who I didn't know, started asking how'd you make it. So I started just creating things with like pre-cuts, and that's during the time that when Moda was going to start the Moda Bake Shop. So they're like, hey, this person keeps making stuff with pre-cuts. Maybe we could ask her to be a contributor. So that was my introduction to Moda, and I always say that it was like I got an email from someone from Moda, and they're like, hey, we're starting this blog and we'd love for you to do it. We'll send you some fabric. And I'm like, just stop. Whatever you're going to say next, I don't care. You're going to send me fabric? So I'm sold. I'll do whatever you want me to do for the fabric. So I started creating things for the Moda Bake Shop. And then, so as I started creating things for the Moda Bake Shop, I got a little bit better about knowing how to really sort of give instructions, step-by-step instructions. And then I started creating my own patterns and putting those into Etsy. And then, so that was the next step. And then after that, I presented my idea of ombre fabrics, because at that point, there was ombre out there, but Moda didn't have an ombre line. And I just thought, what if we make it like this beautiful springy colors and like just a set of gorgeous colors. So that was my first original idea. And then, so of course they wanted a line like vintage sheets, because I loved vintage sheets, to go with the line. So I gathered up a couple of vintage sheets and then a few little other designs. I'm not a graphic designer, but I have art background as well. So I would draw a few things just on graph paper, and then it would get digitalized. So that's how I created my first fabric line with them.
That is so exciting. I remember too. I remember seeing it and thinking, this is genius, the ombre fabric. And now your fabric collections are basics, right? All of your ombre are basics, or
yeah, the confetti dot is for sure like that one, and they usually keep like 10 colors now. I mean, there are quite a range of them, but I know that the basics, it comes and goes with the colors, but like I know that there's definitely like the 10 colors for sure, and then of course then there's lots of other ins and outs with other overlays. So we've got the fairy dust, and we've got bloom, and we've got, there's quite a few of them. Like there's a Christmas one with snowflakes. There's so many of them, but the one that is the basic is the confetti dot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember, I feel like we were right next to you at Quilt Market when you introduced the confetti dot.
I think you're right.
And your daughter came, I remember, at that Quilt Market, and maybe she was right on the cusp of being able to be in there at Quilt Market or something, but yeah,
well,
had just turned that age.
Yeah. Well, she looks really young for her age. She's almost 19, and she still gets asked, like, where are your parents? And she's like, I am 18. Like, it's okay. And so she looks, everyone thinks she's like 15. But when she was, I think she was like 11 or 12, like when she came, or she was like right around that age. And everyone's like, you shouldn't be here. And she's like, I am the right age. I just look young.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I briefly met your husband and maybe your sons, one or two. Yeah, I think Chelsea and I briefly met your family at that market. So.
Yeah. So I guess I should have said that about my family too. I have 4 kids, and I've been married to Jake for about 27 years. 27. We just celebrated 27 years.
Awesome. You just did something really exciting within the last couple of weeks. I think you should tell everybody about that.
I did. Well, the joke is that if you, how do you know that there's a marathoner in the room? And it's like, don't worry, they'll tell you. They'll figure out how a way to like tell you about how they just ran a marathon. Let me tell you about my marathon. So I qualified last year. I ran my first marathon last year. I trained for it for a full year to lead up to being able to do it. And then my goal was to eventually someday be able to do the Boston Marathon. And in order to get into the Boston Marathon, you have to qualify at a certain time for your age. And so my goal was like, okay, you know what? First, I just want to complete the marathon. Let's see if I can do that. And if I'm feeling really good, I've trained to possibly qualify for the Boston Marathon. I qualified for the Boston Marathon the first time I ran a marathon. So I just ran it a few weeks ago, the Boston Marathon.
Yes, it was so exciting. I was so proud of you. It's
Thank
like, I know
you.
somebody who ran the Boston Marathon. That's
Yeah, well, it's basically my identity. Hi, I'm a quilter, and I just ran the Boston Marathon. Nice to meet you.
yeah. I think that with everything that you do with the fabric and um, training and coaching, and I think people would probably love to hear some kind of like time management. How do you keep track of everything, whether it's things that you have to do for Moda or things that you have to do for your other professional things? I just feel like all quilters want to hear about how to get things done. And I know you work with a lot of quilters on that. And so do you have any and I don't even know if I put this on our little question list, but it just came to my mind. But do you have any tips on how quilters can make time to do the things that they want to do, or
Yeah, sure.
how you do it personally?
Well, yeah, okay. I'll give you both of that. It's a loaded
Yeah.
question, but yes.
Yeah.
So I do. I work with a lot of women, and this is usually what comes up most of the time is I'm really good at getting things done, but like sometimes I don't know how to manage my time, and then like I'll like just sort of like crash and like do 24 hours of sewing because I have a deadline. Like I just want to not feel so overwhelmed with deadlines, or just like I just feel overwhelmed because like I would like to have this be not just a pleasurable thing, but like something that I feel like I have set aside time to, and I have a plan and I follow through. So most people, we get super excited about buying the fabric, right? And buying the project or starting a project. And then the hard part is to actually have the stamina to continue on and to set aside time intentionally to actually create. But the hard part about that is to find the balance of putting aside time for quilting and then also making sure that you're still taking care of yourself outside of the sewing room. And so that's where a lot of the times, like, we also talk about how you're taking care of your body, not just when you're sitting, because when we sit for long periods of time, sometimes it becomes painful. It's also, what do you do intentionally outside of the sewing room? So my time management is I look at I ask you a ton of questions. You tell me how the things you'd like to get done, and then also in a time frame that you like to get them done. And then also we look at your life and we start to declutter first the things that are just wasteful time things. And we don't necessarily recognize how much time, and I use this waste word because it's just unintentional time that's just sort of floating around in our day. And when we become a little bit more intentional with our time, it is amazing how much we can actually get done, but happily and like with purpose. And it brings this whole new level of satisfaction when it comes to time managing and also quilting. I also help a lot of people declutter not just their time, but also their spaces and then also their minds. So a lot of times we tend to really sort of like are negative to ourselves about our quilting. We're like, oh my gosh, I'm just not good at this. Oh, I'm such an idiot. I literally just heard those words at a quilt retreat that I was just at teaching. And she just said it under her breath. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're not an idiot. It's like, let's just unpick and start all over again. It's not that big of a deal. But a lot of times we're so mean to ourselves in the way that we speak to ourselves when we're sewing that we don't really recognize it. So I really start to help individuals declutter their mind, their space, and their time. And it's crazy how much happier they are in all aspects of their life, not just when they're quilting, but also when they're quilting, but when they're in their quilting room and when they're out of their quilting room.
And I love that you mentioned that at the retreat. That happens to me all the time too. And, as you're walking around and checking on people's progress, and yeah, it's not a bad thing to have to unpick your seams. And it doesn't mean I just I usually try to help people. I'll say, here, give it to me and I'll unpick it for you, because it seems to take the pressure off of them, right?
Yeah.
But they're so hard on themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing that I just really start to recognize is that, the way that we speak about our experience or just even our quilting or even how we explain things, really our body and our mind listens to it, and then we start to believe it more and more and more. So when we call ourselves an idiot because we didn't do or we sewed a block upside down, it's really not that big of a deal. We can just unpick it and it'll be just fine. And you're like, oh, just made a mistake. No big deal. But a lot of times, I talk about this in my blog. That's one of the things that we were going to talk about is quilting or blogging when I first started and blogging now. I take that approach. It's no longer about usually my family and things like that. I do give examples of myself, but it's much more informational on the psychology side of quilting. I mean, think about why we quilt. It makes us feel good. We love to give things to people that we love. Why do we pick the colors that we choose? Because they make us feel something. There's a psychology to it. So oftentimes we don't think about it, and we don't get to really fully experience the joy part of it if we are unintentional with it. And then sometimes we'll just have things pile up and become overwhelmed because we have things piling up, instead of just saying okay, let me just regroup, reset, and let's make a plan.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned your blogging now, because I actually want to link to some of your blog posts in the description. You've had some amazing ones, just I feel like since January, really intentional ones, how to get a quilt project done from start to finish. And I should have looked up all the titles, but some really helpful blog posts, and that quilters will want to go and read, because like you said, you bring in all aspects of the organizing and the preparing, and
Yeah.
I've enjoyed reading them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I came back to blogging starting in January. It's been sporadic up until then, but this year I have decided that we are going to make an effort to blog twice a month. And so every third and fourth week we have a blogging, and one is quilt related with the psychology of how to progress or how to be mindful, how to each month will have it's a different, not a challenge, but it's more of an idea behind it. So I do one for quilting and then the other one for life coaching, just you're outside of the sewing room, but always tying it together, because we're not 24/7 just in our sewing room, right? Sitting behind the sewing machine. We are other things. And so this last one, I think is the one where I did it's how to finish a quilt in 1 month from start to finish. It could be one that's been sitting there for decades. This last time, there was someone that had a quilt that she was hand stitching, and she had started in 1982. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, let's go. That's awesome. But she's like, I just want it to be over. And I'm like, okay. But it's things like that, right? It's like you see something and you just want to finish it from start to finish, and we lose motivation. Always. Like, it's always exciting in the beginning, and then we'll lose motivation. Or there's a part that we love to do more than other parts. Like, how many times have you not finished it because you have to sew on a binding? Like, like, I just don't want to put on the binding. So I did. I just did a way of thinking of pre-planning it, having a plan, shopping your closet. That's a great way to declutter your space. Is to shop your closet and just sort of like make a plan, but then give yourself a little bit of a goal. I'd like to finish it by May 28th. So I always suggest I think we've talked about this some other places, so you'll understand this, but your audience hasn't heard this, but reverse engineer it. So what ends up happening is, if you want it done by the 28th completely, imagine yourself it done. And then, so what you do is you then walk backwards. That's how you plan your project. You walk it backwards instead of just like, okay, I'm just going to start today and then I'm just going to keep going. That's like happenstance. You don't know when you're going to have your time. But if you actually reverse engineer it and say, okay, by this time I'm going to get it done, and then you walk it backwards, and like you'll say, you know what, I'll just work on it for 40 minutes every single day after dinner when I have this downtime. Or if that doesn't make sense, you know what, after all the kids go to school, I'll like just set aside 40 minutes with a timer, and I'm just going to work on this project. Because you know, when you have like estimated how long you can work on it, 40 minutes a day will get you there, right? And so then you don't lose your whole entire day to just quilting, although wouldn't that be so great? But you also are able to balance other things in your life, like getting out and getting groceries or shopping or working or doing other things as well.
Yeah, no, I love that concept. We talked about it, I don't know, I feel like a couple months ago, and I just feel like I had the craziest spring where I had 2 eye surgeries and I had these 175 kits to get ready for my retreats. And I'm about, let's see, I'm 5 days away from leaving as we're taping this, and I only have 13 more kits to put together, and all they need is the
Congratulations.
background fabric. Yes, I did it.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Most of us just go, okay, I know the date, and so maybe if I just do this, then it'll work out. But when we work backwards, it makes sense of like, okay, if I have 50 done by this day, then that means I only need to get 40 more done. Okay, that works. So then you can space it out backwards. And it doesn't like, you're not spending literally 4 days before your trip just cutting all the kits because you're like, oh, I had this come up and this other thing come up. But the way that I teach time management is that I give buffer times, I give emergency issues and things like that within the day. That's how we schedule our day. And it really does work out. Like it really makes a huge difference.
I want to have you send us some photos of your quilts because Billy will be able to put them up on the
Oh, sure.
screen for everyone to look at.
Okay, yeah.
But what I notice about your quilts is they're all very colorful. They are all, I feel like you love geometric designs and
Yeah,
patterns. Is that
I do.
true? What are your favorite quilt designs? And
Well, when you're working with Ombre, I just say let Ombre make you a rock star. Because if you think about it, you don't have to work really hard with Ombre to just make it look amazing. You can just cut it up into squares and create a baby quilt using one piece of fabric. You can't really do that with most other fabrics because you cut it up and put it into shapes. Well, it all blends because it's got a pattern and it's just a little chaos. It just doesn't look like anything. But I actually have I'm going to use this because it was just actually sitting here as I was trying to get some stuff done. This is a perfect example of just squares, right? So this right here is just squares of ombre, but the ombre does the work for you. And so for me, I think half square triangles, as you can see right here, this is I'll probably send this picture. This one is stargazing, and that one is just half square triangles. But if you notice how like the ombre fabric just plays with each other with half square triangles, that's what I get so excited about. I live and breathe ombre fabric. Like that's how my mind works when it comes to fabric design and like patterns, is that how can I just make something really simple look really fantastic and kind of complicated, but it's not. So if you look at like this looks like you have to get a lot of different shades of the same, color, but ideally all you're doing is cutting it up and making half square triangles. So yes, I do a lot of geometric things, but it's usually to just show how amazing the different shades and just the randomness of ombre fabric, and how you don't really have to have a plan. You can just kind of play around with it, and it just creates this amazing look. So it helps you become a rock star without hardly any effort.
So when you make a whole bunch of half square triangles with your ombre fabric, then kind of the fun part is probably deciding where to put them in the design so that the ombre effect.
Yeah. And then some people, that blows their mind because they're like, no, I want to know exactly how to, and I'm like, it's okay. Turn your phone onto grayscale and then take a picture and then move things around. And that helps you to like know where to put some of your blocks. If you're having a hard time with like getting out of tell me exactly where to put the squares.
Right. So. I feel like I need to play around with some ombre fabric. Like
I'll send you some.
Be like a really refreshing, creative experiment, right?
Yeah. Well, I love it.
So good. Is there anything else you want to share about our readers? I know we'll give all the links for your blog and for your Instagram. And I know you have your more of a quilting Instagram, and then you have a coaching Instagram where you share lots of positive tips and ideas. And
right. Yeah.
So is there any place else they can find you? I know. I think I know you have. You want to talk about your Facebook group?
Okay, yeah. So I have a Facebook group. It's a private one, and it's just women who are trying to find a space where other women are trying to get motivated or have accountability to get outside of their sewing room or get away or get out from behind the sewing machine and do some strength training or walking. A lot of them are mainly just walkers. There's a few runners in there, but it's just every day they don't post every day. I post every day just giving little tips or also what I did that day and things like that. Because my whole idea for that group was so that we're quilters, but we're also wanting to feel good as we sit down behind our sewing machine. In order to do that, we kind of need to take care of ourselves outside of the sewing room, which is to actually get some movement in, trying to get in those like up to 10,000 steps, and there's a whole range of different, like, hey, I'm just trying to get 10 minutes of walking, and we celebrate that. So, doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum of like what you're doing. It's just a community of other quilters who are just trying to move a little bit more outside of the sewing room, or sometimes in their sewing room, because there's a lot of interesting, fun things you can do all within your sewing space as well. And that's been fun to like talk about as well. Some of them, a lot of people in that group also have bought my workbook, which is a year-long of challenges, which is kind of like that goes along with our blog post. So this is mindfulness. This month of May is all about mindfulness. So I talk about mindful eating and then also mindful time management. And then on the blog which will come out next week and the week after that will be about those things as well.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I did purchase. I believe I purchased your workbook at the beginning of 2024, and
Yes.
I have loved it. Yeah, I have just loved it. And because I feel like it's so well researched too. Like if you have a section on walking, you'll have all these links to articles you can read on walking and the benefits. And so to me, it was more than a fun, calendar goal setting workbook. It was really research based, and I've loved it. And with the exercises, and I've told you my younger son is just, Mom, you gotta do weights. You gotta. So I have loved your workbook, and we are going to have a link for that.
Okay, perfect.
And we're going to have a code, right? AQL20
Yes. And
for the
that means,
workbook.
yeah, for all of your listeners who use that, they get 20% off of the workbook. And it's not just a workbook.
Yes.
It's also all the videos for all the strength training. But then there's also a library of coaching once a week. Like you can click on a link and it's like what that week, like think about certain things in a certain way. Just a little bit of like life advice sort of, but to help you to follow through, to get motivation, how to do hard things. When it comes to like, some of us don't like to exercise. So how do we get out of that? Like, how do we sort of help ourselves to get motivated and follow through? A lot of people know exactly what to do when it comes to our health, but we just don't know why we don't do it. And a lot of times it's just, I don't have time, I don't like it, or some part of my body hurts, or something gets in the way. And so I use that library of coaching every single week to help you through those three main issues.
Right. Yeah, and I love the fact that it's also not dated. So you can start anytime with month one,
Yep. Yeah.
and you can also sometimes I'll just flip through it if there's something I want to learn about or read about. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I have loved it. So,
Awesome. Yeah. And it's with a filter in mind. Sorry.
oh, yeah. Is there anything else you want to mention where they can find you, or something we
Um,
missed? And it's so fun. I send over questions and have an outline, but then we just get talking. So I think we covered about
I think so.
everything.
You can just find me at vanessachristenson.com. And then there is if you're interested in life coaching, you can also just sign up for my emails. Or if you're just interested in getting any of like my patterns or things like that, you can sign up for an email. And then every month we have a new pattern that will be highlighted and discounted for just the email subscribers. So every month there's a new one, and so it's pretty consistent in how we do that. And then you can do both of them or just one or the other.
Okay. Yeah, you'll have to send us all that information. I think Billy might have a question for you.
Yeah, well, two things. One, congratulations on the Boston Marathon. I'll just come in
Thank you.
and let everyone know that I'm not like an avid runner, but I do know 100%. Like you can't just sign up and run the Boston Marathon, and your qualifying time has to
No.
be very good. So that just the fact that you qualify for that lets me know you're a pretty elite runner, which is that's really impressive. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And then the other thing, I might have just missed it. I always, whenever we have designers on, is there any new, like maybe my mom already mentioned it, but is like, what's your newest fabric collection? Is it coming out soon?
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
just come out? Anything like that?
Yeah, well, I did have one at the beginning of the year come to stores, which was Color Crush, which was my first pattern fabric in a long time, because not ombre. So it was a little different, and it was kind of fun to work that way. But I do have a new one coming out in fall. So I will be at Fall Market, and I have a brand new ombre. I am so excited. It's very different from all the other ones, but I'm super excited to play with it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, and this fall market is going to be such an exciting one with the 50th anniversary of Moda. I think all the designers are going to try to be there. So, yeah, so I guess that's when I'll see you next.
Yes, I'm so
In
excited.
person.
Yeah.
Okay, and we will put all of the links for Vanessa up in the description. And yeah, this was super fun. I cannot believe it took us so long to get this on our schedules.
I know. Thank you for asking me. And I just love being here and talking about quilting and all of our passions. So it's been really fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so that is it. I really hope you enjoyed the conversation. I do have a couple of notes I want to clarify. We gave you a code at the end of our conversation for her workbook, but Vanessa wanted to also let you know that that code applies to patterns in her shop. So if you're looking, she has some fabulous, fabulous quilt patterns. And so that 20% off will also apply to the patterns. So we'll have all of those links, all of the places you can find Vanessa and her fabrics and her patterns and her workbook and all of her Instagram, Facebook, everything that we talked about will have linked in the description below. We will be back on Monday, June 9th for our next episode, and Chelsea will be back that day, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks so much for stopping by.